once again to our show, which is called Real Shame. It's a show where we review movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spots, hence the name Real Shame. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And this week we're watching stuff that I haven't seen before, but before we do that, we always like to touch base and see what each other's been watching. So, Andy, have you been watching anything good lately?
Some good, some bad.
Seems about normal.
All right, so first of all, I watched another movie from Down Under, good old Australia. It's an 80s kind of horror movie called Razorback. Ever heard of Razorback?
I've heard of it as in like an animal, right? Isn't it a school mascot too, right?
Arkansas.
Yeah.
So this movie is about a giant razorback that is terrorizing the outback down there in Australia. It was directed by a guy named Russell Mulcahy. And the visual style of the movie, because Russell Mulcahy, his background was in music videos. He directed a ton of music videos in the 1980s. I think he did most or all of Duran Duran's music videos.
Like Rio and...
Yeah. Union
like
of the Snake,
Wolf.
Wild Boys, Hungry Like the Wolf.
Wild Boys.
I mean, I don't know if he directed all of those, but I think he directed most or all of those. But the movie visually is spectacular.
Awesome.
Like, it's so cool to look at. Unfortunately, I felt like I wanted the movie to be a lot better than it was. They do kind of take the Jaws approach, so less is more. They don't show the Razorback as much, and I think that helps. But there's a lot of really like obnoxious characters in the movie that they spend a lot of too much time with when they're not showing the Razorback. That I was like, come on and get back to the Razorback stuff. I would say the movie's worth watching overall. It's definitely, I mean, visually alone, it's really, really cool to look at. He does a lot of cool stuff with it.
Is it fairly short?
It's like, 90 minutes, something like that. But Russell Mulcahy went on to do Highlander. If you're a fan of Highlander, he directed at least
the only one.
At least the first one. I don't know that he did any of the other ones. And he's done some other stuff, but I remember those two specifically, Razorback. And Razorback also goes well with, there's I believe, South Korean film called Chaws, like Jaws, but with a CH and a Z at the end, which is also about a giant, like, Razorback.
Interesting.
Which also, unfortunately, I don't think is that great of a film, but they do make a good double bill because they're both about giant razorbacks terrorizing people.
You say these Jaws kind of, not remakes, but like movies that are derived from it. And it makes me think of Kevin Smith's Moose Jaws. Have you heard about that?
No.
He has like this Canadian trilogy that he wants to do.
Okay.
So he has, I think it was Tusk, Yoga Hoosers, and then Moose Jaws is the third one. And it's basically a Jaws movie, but it's a giant moose that's attacking people.
Okay.
Sorry. So every time you said Jaws, I kept on thinking of Kevin Smith's Moose Jaws.
Well, I never saw Tusk and didn't really want to. I never saw Yoga Hosers and didn't really want to. But I actually might watch that. That sounds kind of interesting. So, yeah, maybe that'll be funny.
Jump in on that, but...
No. And then I watched yet another time loop movie is out now called The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. That is an Amazon Prime movie.
I think I've seen a couple images for it, but I have no clue who's in it or anything about it.
It's got the girl, I don't know her name, from Freaky.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, I don't know her name. And I have no clue who the main guy is. This one is not like Palm Springs. Well, it has some similarities to Palm Springs, but it's not as much of a comedy.
Okay.
I guess, even though Palm Springs, I guess, had some serious stuff in it too. This one is more of kind of a love story, kind of a bit more serious. I actually liked it, despite the fact that we're probably treading a bit too much on the time loop stuff these days.
Yeah.
So that's probably it. We can probably cap it there. Don't continue to make a bunch of time loop movies, at least not for a while. But yeah, I thought it was decent, and I do believe it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I believe it is too. Yeah, I need to check that out. It kind of looked bland. Yeah. You know, it didn't look like it was going to be worth much time, but that you kind of liked it might be worth checking out for sure.
I went in blind. It may be better that way. I mean, obviously, it's a time loop movie, but I didn't really know anything about it other than that. I watched a movie that you've already seen called The Sound of Metal.
Yes.
Also on Amazon Prime, which I thought was good.
Yeah.
And horrifying, because if that happened to me, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, it's being in I was trying to figure out the main character's name. Shoes it's very horrifying, just kind of to know, to see what goes on and all that kind of stuff. The guy who helps him out at the the place is amazing. Like
Yeah,
I think he'd stand out in the role for me. But yeah, it's a good movie.
He was really good. But yeah, no, I thought the movie was really, really quite excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I liked it a lot, despite the fact that, yes, if that were to happen to me, I would be terrified. And it's a terrifying situation, what he goes through. And then finally, I went down kind of I wouldn't say a rabbit hole, but because we talked recently about kind of Oscar stuff is coming. Well, I guess at this point, will the Oscars already have gone? I don't even know when this is going to air. But one of our
4 weeks from now,
prior episodes, we talked about kind of what was going to be nominated for Oscars. And I know Trial of the Chicago 7 is getting a lot of buzz. And this, to me, I liked it. But I know you'd already seen it. And I think we talked about it because it's Aaron Sorkin when we did A Few Good Men. I liked it. I mean, it's not A Few Good Men, but I don't expect it to be. I thought that the performances were good. I thought the story was interesting. I thought the writing was good. I do think Sacha Baron Cohen's accent flits in and out, from British to he's playing Abby Hoffman. So whatever Abby Hoffman's accent was, I think it kind of goes back and forth. But I thought Mark Rylance was really good as their lawyer. Frank Langella is an asshole as the judge, but apparently the judge in real life was an ass. But no, I liked it. I thought it was good. But because that movie, in a very small role, there's a guy playing Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party. So I watched Judas and the Black Messiah, which is about Fred Hampton. I thought that was good as well. That's a good. That's on HBO Max.
Yep.
Of course, Trial of Chicago 7 is on Netflix. And then after watching both of those, I rewatched a movie called Medium Cool, which was Haskell Wexler's directorial debut, and it stars a very young Robert Forster. Now, Medium Cool it actually was filmed, a lot of it was filmed at the Democratic Convention in Chicago in 1968, which is when all this stuff took place. When they're put on trial in the trial of Chicago 7, they were protesting at that time. So there is actually... footage of all of that stuff incorporated into Medium Cool. So it's cool, no pun intended, for that reason. The movie itself is a lot of kind of improv, and it wasn't really scripted, so it's definitely not everybody's bag. I think it's more interesting to view it as like a time capsule of 1968 Chicago. If you kind of look at it from that perspective and don't really expect much of a story, because there's really not much of one, it's cool. And it's also cool to see Robert Forster such a young age, because most people I think know him from Jackie Brown.
Right?
Yeah, Jackie Brown and On, right? When he played Max Cherry. But yes, that's what I've been watching. I went down the Chicago rabbit hole. So
yeah, I just feel like Chicago 7, like nothing's. I think the person that played the character that was in Judah and the Black Messiah, that. I think he probably stand out the most to me in that movie. But for me, it's like I felt like it was very middling and forgetful. And I think I've already said this before, but also like it didn't feel like it felt like Aaron Sorkin was like slumming it or something, or like phoning it in, I guess is a better word than slumming it. It felt like he was just phoning it into me. So that's why I kind of maybe I don't know. That's where I fell on it.
I thought it was interesting, and I thought the writing was good. So.
Well, I'm in the minority because I know Kirby liked it too. So. Yeah. All right, did you ask me what I've been watching?
No, but I'm done. So what have you been watching?
All right. I think it was last week or the week before, I talked about watching Conan the Barbarian. Yes. So I decided to finish that unofficial trilogy because Red Sonja is not really he doesn't play Conan in the movie. But I watched Conan the Destroyer, which not as good as Conan the Barbarian. It's very long. Like I just remember checking my proverbial watch all the time and just being like, okay, let's get it over with.
Yeah.
And Red Sonja, which I will say, and this might be a controversial take, I think is better than Conan the Destroyer because it's short and there's more action and you're not constantly checking your watch. It goes by at a very brisk pace. It's under 90 minutes. Yeah. So you can't do a whole lot of wrong in that amount of time. So I like that a lot. We also kind of went on a Nick Cage kind of binge, and we watched the Ghost Rider movie, which was terrible. And it's not like...
I haven't ever seen it.
Part of it's good terrible, but part of it is just terrible. Nick Cage is acting a lot with his face, and that's the good part of the movie.
Yeah.
He's making a lot of really funny facial expressions. It's directed by the same guy who directed Daredevil and the Electro movie, which I don't think are terrible. They're not offensive. They're not great, but they're not bad. But this movie is not good at all. But we in addition to watching that, we watched a new Nick Cage movie that came out, and it's Willy's Wonderland. And this one is basically like a Five Nights at Freddy kind of thing where he gets trapped in this building with these animatronic creatures that come alive and try to kill him. And there's a whole backstory on why they are alive, which I don't want to spoil since it's a really new movie. And this one is like, the premise sounds fun. Like it sounds like Nick Cage beating up stuffed animals, like Showbiz Pizza kind of animals, kind of stuff like that. But it doesn't deliver. It delivers on that, but it's not as fun as I would think the concept would be fun. I think the lasting thing for Willy's Wonderland is the music. The tunes those creatures sing is catchy, and it will stick in your head. And I looked at who did it, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Whoever did those songs did a really good job. So good job for you. That's really good. And so that's pretty much what I've been watching. Let's get into our featured review, and that's going to be
Ghost World.
Ghost World.
All right. Enid and Rebecca have just graduated high school. Now what? First, they'll spend the summer navigating jobs, living situations, and friendships both new and old. But will their own friendship with each other make it through unscathed? Huh? Thora Birch and Scarlett Johansson star in Ghost World.
Ghost
Well, there's some choice LPs in here that reissue some really great old blues stuff.
How about this one? Is it any good?
Nah, that one's not so great. Excuse me. This is the one I'd recommend. This track alone by Memphis Minnie is worth about $500 if you own the original 78. I know the guy who owns the original and lent it for use on this reissue.
Wow. How much is it?
$1.75. If you don't like it, you can bring it back for a refund. We're here every Saturday.
I'm sure it's okay.
Enjoy it.
So, Ghost World, this is another movie that I think someone asked us or recommended that we do in one of the comments to our videos. So, once again, if you have any sort of recommendations, you can leave them in the comments below, or you can email us at realshame@gmail.com. We always love recommendations. If we haven't seen it, we'll do it on a Monday episode. If we've both seen it, we can always throw it in on a Wednesday episode and pair it with something we haven't seen on a Monday. Ghost World came out in 2001. It's directed by a guy named Terry Zwigoff, and it's based on a graphic novel by a guy named Daniel Close, Clowes, but it's pronounced like close, like Close.
Like Glenn Close.
Yes, like Glenn Close, exactly. No relation. So
Thora, it's spelled different.
Thora Birch plays Enid. Scarlett Johansson, or ScarJo, plays Rebecca. Steve Buscemi is also in the film. He plays Seymour. And then from there, we've got Brad Renfro. The late Brad Renfro plays their friend Josh. Ileana Douglas, who I haven't seen in quite a while, I feel like, plays an art teacher named Roberta. And then rounding out the cast, you've got a non-bearded Bob Balaban. So you either get bearded Bob Balaban, say that 5 times fast, bearded Bob Balaban, yeah. Or you get non-bearded Bob Balaban. You get a non-bearded Bob Balaban in this movie. He plays Enid's father, or Thora Birch's father. Terry Garr's in the movie for like 30 seconds, I feel like.
Yeah.
She plays the father's love interest, Maxine. And then David Cross is actually in the movie also very briefly. He kind of hits on the girls at a party that Seymour had. Oh, and Crispin Glover's dad is in it too. Bruce Glover is in it for also like 10 seconds. He plays, he's the customer that's, I think he's in a wheelchair at where Scarlett Johansson's working at the coffee shop. And he's like, I can't see the trivia question or whatever. That's him.
That's him.
Crispin Glover's dad. All right. So this is a movie that I actually saw at the theater when it came out. Yes, back in the summer of 2001. I saw it at the Inwood Theater in Dallas.
Back in the summer of '69 or
Summer of
2001.
'69, yeah, 2001. And guess what? Guess what time? Or guess what number time this is that I've seen this movie?
I'm gonna guess 3.
That's correct.
This is the 3rd time.
I've seen this movie in the theater. I saw it once. I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago, and then for the show. But you've never seen it.
Never
which is
seen
why
it.
we chose to do it on a Monday.
That's right.
At the recommendation that we had. So I will let you get into it. I'm assuming you've never read the comic Ghost World by Daniel Close.
No, I have not. I wasn't aware it was based off a comic until I started watching the movie, and then I was like, oh, yeah.
Okay. So give us a little.
Okay.
Give us a little.
So I watched the movie, because
I hope so.
That's what we do. No, I'm going to do
You're
this.
like, I read the Cliff's Notes. So
I
skimmed it.
I did the trailer, which is the Cliff Notes version of watching the movie, so I know everything about it.
Okay.
And then I was reading a little bit on Wikipedia and learning a little bit more about the behind the scenes. And Andrew Saris of the New York Observer basically summarized kind of where I stood with the movie. So I figured, hey, why not kind of quote him a little bit? So he didn't really like the character of Enid. He said that
which is Thora Birch.
which is Thora Birch's character, which I said I'm doing this quote from Wikipedia, so hopefully it is correct. I found Enid smug, complacent, cruel, deceitful, thoughtless, malicious, and disloyal.
Yikes.
Enid's favorite targets are people who are older, poorer, or dumber than she is. And he's right. So for me, it's hard for me to like and to get, I don't want to say involved, but to enjoy movies that have main characters that are kind of shitty people. And there are a lot of good movies that have people like that. There's like, we have protagonists and then we have antagonists or I don't think antagonist is the right word. I'm thinking of like
anti-hero.
Anti-hero, perfect. Thank you so much. We have anti-heroes and stuff like that. And, it's a little bit of the reason why I don't like mob movies so much is because I don't like watching a movie that kind of celebrates people doing shitty things, killing people, doing criminal activities. Like for me, there's a level of enjoyment I don't get out of that because, I just don't like that kind of activity. I think it's amoral. I think society thinks it's amoral, and I don't get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the baggage I'm bringing to this movie. So I found Enid so mean, and ultimately I found her so childish, and maybe that's the point of this movie, that it just made the whole film off-putting to me. And the movie is kind of like a slice of life, and there's really not a big theme. There's not something that comes back around. The characters don't really change a whole lot. Maybe Enid, how do I say her name? Enid. I keep on saying Edith or Enid or Aaron. I don't know. She changes a little bit. I think she kind of grows a bit, but I think ultimately you can say at the end of the movie, the characters are kind of where they were in the beginning, emotionally and maturity wise. And so like a movie where someone's really bad, but they get a comeuppance and they learn their error of their ways, I can kind of enjoy because I can kind of see that kind of growth. But like I said, I feel in this movie, they kind of, for the most part, kind of stay the same. So it made it kind of hard for me to kind of enjoy the movie because we spend a lot of time with her and her motives are so mean and so, it's just hard to kind of spend this time with her, right? So, but, I think the acting and everything else and the direction is all good. It's just, for me, it's just really off-putting to have a movie focused on a main character that is like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we can go into a little bit later, but this is your third time watching the movie. Where do you fall on it for time number 3?
I like this movie. I don't know if Andrew Sarah, I don't know how old he is or if he has ever known like a teenager.
Yeah.
But I don't think Enid is nearly as mean or cruel or any of those things that he says that she is. I think that she is, I won't say a typical teenager. I have definitely known people like Enid. I feel, and I've definitely known people like Rebecca, the ScarJo character. But I've definitely known people like Enid who, they're too cool for school, if I could say it. And they feel like they know everything. they're maybe like they consider themselves intellectuals and everybody else is kind of dumb to them and whatnot. But oftentimes they're just kind of posers, and they're able to throw something out. They're able to say, "Oh, well, I know about this," or "I know this," but when they're asked to elaborate on it, they're like, "Oh, I didn't think I would actually be grilled on this." And I think Enid is a lot like that. I think that she is just, again, not a typical teenager. I mean, presumably these girls are 17 or 18 because they just graduated high school, but they're still very young. Yeah. And they think they know, or at least Enid thinks she knows everything about the world, but she clearly doesn't.
I think we all did at that age.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And that's why I find her character more relatable. And I don't think that she's such a cruel bitch or whatever that, this guy is saying. She does some cruel things in the movie. One in particular, I mean, the main thing that she does is they play a mean prank on Steve Buscemi, and because Steve Buscemi has basically placed an ad in a little back in the days when you'd place a little ad in it's like almost like a Dallas Observer, misconnection kind of thing. And I remember reading those and like the Austin, not putting ads in there.
I thought you were going to say, I was like,
But there was because I was living in Austin right before this movie came out, and in the Austin Chronicle, and I'm sure they had a similar thing in the Dallas Observer, where they had like I think in the Austin Chronicle it was called A Shot in the Dark. And it was, hey, I saw you a month ago at this bookstore or whatever. So Steve Buscemi has placed an ad like that, trying to reconnect with this girl. And the Enid and Rebecca characters think that it would be funny to call him up and say, hey, I'm Dana. Or, they don't know her name. Sorry. You find out later it's Dana. But they're like, hey, I'm this person that you're looking for. And then they arrange a meeting with him. Then he goes and shows up, and obviously they just sit there and kind of are like, "Oh, this is awkward" or whatever. And they do feel bad about it. They do finally get to know him, and then eventually, a friendship blossoms between Seymour and Enid, especially.
So I do think, like, obviously we would read those misencounters and we'd snicker, right?
Yeah.
But I never ever once thought about calling a person. And, but so for me that started like, we're kind of going over here now, and I don't know. She seemed to revel in the awkwardness of him being at the diner by himself, and they actually go to the diner and watch him, which is like another thing. Like, there's like a couple levels. There's one of like reading it and kind of snickering about it. There's another level of calling and leaving a message. And then there's the other level of like, no, we're gonna go there. We're gonna see this poor schmuck and stuff.
I think to them it's very funny until they get there and they finally see him looking kind of pathetic, and then they do feel bad. And Brad Renfro, the Josh character, feels bad. Scarlett Johansson feels bad, and I think that Enid feels bad as well.
I don't think she starts feeling bad for him until probably post getting the record for me, and so that's what kind of did it. And the whole thing too is like she uses the guy, and she's not sorry for using him. Like, the whole time, and maybe this says to how well crafted the movie is, because when he shows her some of the art that he gets from his place of work, that's insensitive to any sensibilities.
Yes.
And she decides to pawn it off as her own. I'm just like, when she's like, can I borrow that? I'm like, no, don't borrow that.
Well, and when you say pawn it off as her own, she doesn't pretend like she drew it or
she pretends like she found it, right?
Yeah.
And then to the art teacher. But I'm like, no, don't give her that. And then like they go to that sex store, and she's like, I don't have any money. Buy me this mask.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think the mask was like a couple $100s, or at least I got the impression that
I don't think it says
that the mask was expensive. But it just seems like she's like using him to waste time and using him for his money. And it just felt so insincere. And like I said, the fact that the movie made me feel all these things instead of mad about it does speak to the craft of it. But again, it's just like,
I think you may be being a bit too harsh on her. I find her as just an immature kid.
Yeah.
And she's now hanging out with this adult, and she's like, ooh, buy me this, buy me, just kind of being impetuous and not really thinking about, I'm deliberately going to manipulate this guy, or I'm deliberately going to be cruel to this guy or anything like that. I think that she's found a new friend. She's like, ooh, I want this, or kind of buy me this. I just think she's immature. And I'm glad you brought up the sign that she brings to her art school, her art class. So she finds out after they graduate that she has to, she's missing like one credit or whatever.
Or she has to do or something.
She has to take a summer school art class. So that class is taught by Ileana Douglas. So she brings this very insensitive, very racist, frankly, picture to her art class, and I think that's a good scene because Ileana Douglas is like, okay, so tell me about this, and she's like, well, I just brought it in because it's like racist and whatever, and then she's asked to elaborate and she can't. She wanted to bring that there and be shocking and be like, hey, look at this thing that I got. Aren't I awesome? But then once she says, well, tell us a bit more about it, or tell us a bit more about what we should be looking at here. What should we be discussing? And she's like, oh, I didn't really think that through. You know, and so I think again that speaks to her being just this kind of immature character.
And I kind of like those art scenes too, because you would think that she's kind of the artistic person and she would like flourish in it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, right? And then the one kind of nerdy, like it seems like a very much like brown noser, like goody two shoes girl ends up being like the teacher's pet, even in this kind of weird, like she's kind of an alternative kind of teacher.
And it seems like her art all sucks, but the teacher just eats it up.
Yeah, she's like, oh, this is
very
the best
kind of new agey and pretentious.
So I like that scene of it, and I do admit in college in my art class I did try to do one edgy piece and it didn't go over well. So maybe that
you
hit
put a tampon in a toilet like this girl, or a teapot maybe. I think
no,
not a toilet.
It was
not a toilet.
It's a sculpture class, and I'll tell you afterwards what I did.
Oh, okay. Ooh, I can't wait to hear this. But I think the film is good. I don't know that I like it as much as I did 20 years because the movie's now 20 years old. I don't know that I like it as much as I did then. I do feel like now it kind of meanders some because it does go on a bit. I feel like there's some characters in there that they maybe don't spend enough time with that I wish that they would have. The art class that she goes to, they definitely spend some time in there, but then they take that art piece that she brought and they put it in a gallery and it gets a lot of hate. But I don't feel like they do enough with that part of the movie. I think the best part of the movie is Enid and Seymour's relationship and kind of what happens with them. Rebecca, the Scarlett Johansson character, is kind of pushed to the background. She's not given a lot of time in this movie.
She kind of she's at the beginning, she disappears, and all of a sudden she's at the end.
Which you would expect them to be a little more balanced because they're both on the poster. And from what I understand about the comic book, it has a much more balanced approach. It kind of devotes equal time to Enid and Rebecca. Excuse me. I like a lot of the kind of quirky characters that are kind of in the background, like they follow the one couple around that they're like, I bet they're Satanists or whatever, or at the Wowsville diner that they meet Seymour at. They've got the guy with the kind of frizzy hair, and they call him Weird Al.
So mean to him, poor guy.
I mean, they call it. They're like, we'll call you weird. But
because they're mean people.
They're teenagers. I mean, they're just silly. It's not like they're flipping him off or like kicking him in the rear.
They basically are. No. But here, guys, here's 2 cents for you. Don't be mean to the waiter before you get your food.
Well,
Don't be mean to your waiter ever. But if you're gonna be mean to him, be mean to him after you've eaten.
I don't think they're that mean to the guy.
I would if I was his waiter. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he did something. They did a waiting to their food. But on the meandering thing, I kind of the film that this reminds me a lot of is Her, when we reviewed Her, and that's kind of how I feel about Her is how I kind of feel about this movie, and the way I feel about Spike Jonze's movies, and the way I feel about the guy who does Moonrise Kingdom. I can't think of his name right now. Wes Anderson kind of movies. So I feel like it has this kind of pastiche to it. It has this look to it, which, like it or don't, that's fine with me. But at the end of the movie, like the movie felt like very flat to me. There didn't feel like, it just felt very like monotone the whole time when I was watching that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of
not a whole lot happens.
Plays into the whole meanderingness of it in my book.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. And I agree with you. I don't know that these characters radically change or anything. Like that. I mean, I think the biggest thing is their friendship kind of disintegrates. Because Rebecca, I'm assuming you like the Rebecca character a lot more because she's a lot more grounded and it's not as mean.
She seems realistic. Yeah.
She's like, hey, let's get a job, stick with it, because she has the same job the entire movie at the coffee shop. And Enid is the one who's just like, tries to work at the movie theater. Which did that bring back any PTSD from working at the movie theater?
A little bit of the
upside, popping the popcorn,
upsizing and stuff like that. Like they were all big on upsizing.
Right? Did you ever tell the customer that the movie sucks?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
I remember. I remember us trying to exit the theaters and stuff. It was really funny. But I won't get into that here.
Some of the characters, I like several of the kind of quirky characters or the things that you see maybe just in the background, like I know at one part where they're going to look at apartments together, there's a pregnant lady walking in front of them who I think is smoking and has a beer, which, but it's just, if you blink, you might miss it. Like just kind of things in the background that there's a lot of that in the movie that I like. I don't like, however, for example, the guy with the nunchucks with the mullet, and like I feel like he's in a different movie.
Yeah,
like that guy is so over the top and hammy. I'm like, this guy belongs in like a totally. But a lot of people love that guy in the movie just because he's so like funny.
He's so
looking.
weird.
Yeah, so weird.
And it also, that kind of just reminds me of Napoleon Dynamite and his like brother, is it, that just tries to do karate or whatever.
Yeah, I think
this whole movie kind of has that.
So.
Pastiche. Oh, what's the word I was
Pastiche?
saying? Pastiche to it. I said it earlier,
Pastiche.
right?
You did.
That's right.
You can only say it once, though.
I can only say it once. So yeah, I get that too. Yeah, I think with you, if it was more focused on some core characters, it would have been better, because even her interest in the boy that works at the gas station,
Josh. Yeah.
Josh, he's kind of there and gone and doesn't really do anything with that. So
yeah,
it's interesting, because at the end she just kind of just gets on the bus and just fuck off out of town.
Yeah, that's it. And I feel like the ending is a bit abrupt, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
she sees the one guy who's always waiting for the bus. She finally sees a bus pull up and get him, and it's like, bam, the next day she's like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So I wish there was a little bit more resolution between her and Rebecca. Just, a goodbye or something.
I guess you kind of have her with Seymour, because she goes through the rest of her journal and shows him some of the stuff. But yeah, I
love little scenes because they're so kind of cringy, where, for example, Seymour, so we didn't mention, but Seymour finally does find the girl that he had a misconnection with, named Dana. I think it's Dana. And he goes over to her apartment on a date, and she's like, "Oh, I love this song." And she turns up Ashford and Simpson, Solid as a Rock, and she's dancing all kind of seductively. Yeah. It's so cringy, but I love that kind of stuff in this movie. It's kind of funny to me.
On the music note, the Indian rock that they open the Southeast Asian rock music they open up. As soon as they play that, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like this movie.
I love that scene.
I thought it was so cool, and it really did a great job of pulling me in, and I was like, I was really excited for the movie when that was, because I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I really like the soundtrack of this movie, and I have it somewhere on CD, because I like all those old blues. 78. They collect. Steve Buscemi's character Seymour collects 78 records in the movie, and so does Terry Zwigoff. And I think Daniel Close might as well.
Well, and so does what we're going to talk about Wednesday.
You're correct. But 78s, for those of you that don't know, there's the 33 and a third, which is the typical size of an album that most people know, and then you got 45s, which are a lot smaller. 78 is in between those sizes, and most people don't own any 78s because those are a lot rarer typically, but good stuff. We all
I think I did everything.
Wrapping it up.
Yeah, I think so. Excuse me.
So ultimately, Enid's a little too cruel for you. The movie's a little flat. I think the movie's good. I think it's worth watching. I don't think I like it as much as I liked it when I saw it, but I still think it's worth a look.
And if I look at it through the lens of like a snapshot of a piece of time, I think I kind of like the movie a little bit more of maybe this kind of, and I do think it maybe will fits in a little bit better with, the first movie we reviewed, which was Kicking and Screaming. No, that was third movie reviewed. Yeah. Kicking and Screaming.
Fourth. Right?
Well, I haven't seen it, Kicking and Screaming, so what do we pair it with?
Graduate. We had Graduate and Kicking and Screaming.
True. Yeah. All right. So anyways, I think like the characters are kind of in that same kind of stuck in life, like they were in Kicking and Screaming and stuff like that.
We graduated in that movie. It's college, in this movie it's high school. But what do we do now? And it basically goes across the summer. Yeah.
But I think it as a encapsulation of 2001 and stuff like that. It does its job. Yeah,
it does.
All right.
It was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay.
What?
Yes, it was. And apparently that's the first time that a Best Adaptation Screenplay was nominated for something that came from a comic book. Oh. I think that's the first time. It lost to, any ideas? Movies that came out in 2001? I'll give you a hint. It won Best Picture in 2001. If you can remember that. I'm gonna point at my temple.
Oh, Juno?
No.
Oh, Temple.
Beautiful Mind.
Beautiful Mind.
It lost to screenplay for A Beautiful Mind, which is adapted from, I guess, a book by John Nash, or a book co-written by John Nash, or a book written about John Nash. I don't know. But anyway, that was the one that won Best Adapted Screenplay that year. It's 93% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with an 84% audience score.
I'm in the minority.
You are. Roger Ebert gave it thumbs up, and he called it the number 4 movie of his 10 best list of 2001.
All right.
And Leonard Maltin, not as hot on it, gave it 2.5 stars.
Well, me and Andrew Stars are going to sit over on this side of the room.
Apparently so.
And you and Ebert,
I think you're being
94%
a bit harsh on, but you have to take her age, I think, into consideration.
Yeah.
If she was an old woman or like an adult and was this cruel, or was, did the kind of some of the same things, then I could say, or I would think you'd go, oh yeah, but she's a teenager. She's immature.
And I agree. And I think as we saw with The Graduate, we saw with Kicking and Screaming, I have a hard time relating to these kind of arrested, developed characters at that age.
Yeah.
For me, like the people that is like really close to that age that I can think of off the top of my head is like Go. Like those characters are kind of assholes, but they're kind of goofy, and that's how I remember being 18 is like Go a little bit. And people like that, but maybe that's just different strokes for different folks.
Duly noted. No,
all right,
it's all good. It's all good.
What did we pair this movie with?
All right, so the guy that directed this, it was Terry Zwigoff. After he did this movie, this was actually his first fiction film. After this, he went on to do Bad Santa and another movie called Art School Confidential. And I don't think he's really done a feature film since then. I want to say he did like a Amazon pilot or something, but he hasn't done a feature film since Art School Confidential way back in 2006. But before he did his first feature film, which was Ghost World, he did 2 documentaries, the second of which was Crumb, about the artist Robert Crumb. And we are going to talk about Crumb next time.
All right. So that was everything we want to talk about Ghost World and more. If you feel like me, leave a comment below because I need to prove to people I'm not crazy. But more than likely you feel like Andy. So leave that comment below too, so that way I know that I'm in the wrong. On these Wednesday episodes, we also answer viewer questions. So if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below and type that question. Or send us an email to the email address Andy mentioned earlier in the show, and that's realshame@gmail.com. Follow us on social media @realshame. If you're watching us on YouTube and you want to get notifications, click the bell. That's my one plug for this month. And what else do we say? Stay tuned next time as we watch another movie and cross another movie off our list of shame. We'll see you soon, guys. Thank you.